Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 22nd of May. Sorry we weren't around last week, but we are back, and joining me on this edition, our assistant editor Steve Withers.
This is either madness or brilliance.
News editor Mark Hodgkinson.
If you want pain, try wearing a corset.
And special guest Mark Botwright.
Hello, Poppet.
Hello you. Okay, so this Thursday, Star Wars is 40 years old. We're going to get the Star Wars chat out the way straight away. May the Force be with us all. It's 40 years. That doesn't surprise me at all, because we all kind of know that. What did surprise me was during the week, Attack of the Clones was 15 years old.
Yeah, if you weren't feeling old already, then
that really made me feel old, because I still have in my head that the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, like recent films, not 2 decades ago.
Exactly. You know, Phantom Menace, 20 years old. It's like, oh Jesus.
I mean, it's funny because I remember when I went to see the Phantom Menace, which was 99. It had been 16 years. I was so excited because it's 16 years since the last Star Wars film, Jedi, in '83. It's now 18 years since
Phantom Menace. I know.
And that time was just, that 16 years back in '99 seemed like an incredibly long time, because that was a time period that spanned me being at school and doing my A-levels, going to university, getting a job, getting married, all sorts of things that happened in that period of time. And now I'm thinking, like, 18 years later, done sod all.
That was the first movie I went to see with my now wife when we were in our early stages of our relationship.
Oh, there you go.
And she still married you.
And she still married me despite that fucking shit movie I took her to.
Despite Jar Jar Binks, Mark got married. Yeah. I mean, 18 years ago, I moved into this house the month that opened. So and it doesn't feel like I've been here that long, and I have 18 years I've been here.
There's a whole generation of people now who will grow up whose first exposure to Star Wars will be that film.
And they've all just got the vote. So,
yeah, that's true, isn't it?
What is it you call them? Is it millennials you call them?
Yeah.
Have we got that off our chests?
I was about
a nice
to say,
depressing start to the podcast.
I was about to say the Tories will soon sort that out.
All right, okay. I think we're going in directions where we're going to start annoying people, and we'll start getting comments on YouTube, which we don't want to read, Steve. Yeah. Right. So yeah, Star Wars 40 years old. Where has the time gone? Well, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
I don't mind so much if Disney would just give me the bloody film on Blu-ray.
You're never going to get it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't say never, because obviously they've got the.
Kathleen Kennedy says she's not going to touch George's films. They're his films, and she's not going to touch them, which means we ain't getting the originals.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
They've always got that in the bank, though, haven't they? If one doesn't bring in what they expected to bring in, that's like the trump card they can always play.
I mean, that's true, exactly. I mean, what she meant, I think, was she wasn't going to tamper with the last version that he did, but they could still show, the original version he did in 1977. It's still George's film, right? I mean, you can interpret that in many ways.
Anyway, Mark, tell us about competitions.
Yeah, okay, well, you can win an EE4G Action Cam, which is courtesy of Scan Computers, and the competition is open to all eligible members living in the UK, Ireland, and the Isle of Man. And that one ends on the 29th of June. And there's a review on there's a review up that Greg did some time ago of this, and he liked it. The only thing he criticised was the price. And if you win it, that's not really a consideration, is it? So,
well, there you go. You get round the con that way. Previous competition winners.
Simon D won The Free Man on DVD. So well done, Simon D.
How long ago was that competition?
I don't know. I don't even remember.
1999.
And he wins the soundtrack on cassette.
We laugh, but most people still buy DVDs. It's only us enthusiasts that are about, doing Blu-rays and Ultra HD Blu-rays. It's still a DVD, isn't it?
Well, there's only you doing UHD Blu-rays. Let's put it with certain titles. There's only you that buys them.
True, actually. I bought one this week.
Oh, did you?
What'd you get?
Planet Earth.
Yeah, let's not go there. Mark, let's move on to some news. LG and SES are testing 4K HFR broadcasting.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of sums it up. But SES is having one of its industry days, apparently, in Luxembourg this week.
Right, so SESR?
A very large satellite broadcasting concern, responsible for much of what goes on over Europe. So, yeah, they're probably the biggest fish in the satellite sky, really, as it were. Yeah, and they're
Some
partnering with
metaphors there.
LG. There's some mixed metaphors, yeah, just for a Friday morning or Monday morning rather. And yeah, as far as I know, this is the first time that broadcast HFR has been done anywhere. I don't think it's even been done in Korea. From what I've just did a bit of googling before we started. So yeah, it's an exciting development. It's running on an LG 4K OLED. They didn't say which one, but I don't suppose it matters. Running a prototype firmware. And
So-
I'm assuming it worked.
I'm assuming that this is over the air as well. So if people do have motorised dishes, they could actually, or is it encrypted?
I don't think they would be able to because it's a prototype firmware. So I don't think.
Yeah, the other
So they wouldn't
Maybe
be
TV that could also show.
right. So
They
they
could
might.
give it a go. I mean, they could have given it a go if they read the story. It was at Astra Satellite in 19.2 degrees east.
I think
So,
someone's done it.
Oh, really?
I checked the comments underneath. I think someone did
I
it
probably
with
should have
an
done that.
E6, have managed to, pick up the signal, but technically it's coming through at, 60 frames a second on displaying on their set. That's interesting.
Yeah,
right.
because you'll need the firmware on the TV to see the HFR. But interesting that it's free to air then, if people can get it on a motorised dish.
Yeah, it is, and it shows that it's on the way. So maybe by this time next year, we might be getting actual broadcasts, which would be nice. And you imagine it'd be Sky with the football if it is to happen. But yeah, that's something to look forward to. I mean, recently in Korea, they're doing over the air 4K broadcasting now, aren't they? It's actually launched in April, so that's a reality in Korea. Is everyday 4K TV.
One of the nice little tricks, Steve, in the TV industry is something that Philips do with their Ambilight, and we're not talking about the nightclub mode where everything changes colour depending on what's on screen, but they have a few nice features in there which we always talk about when it comes to watching TV in a dimly lit room, and that's to have some bias light behind your screen. Basically, it relaxes the eyes, and it means that you can watch TV for a good length of time without feeling tired. A lot of people watch TV in a dark room and then wonder why they're so tired or falling asleep and so on, and it's usually because your eyes are actually having to work overtime to basically even out the light output from your TV if there's no other light around the screen. So if it's really bright, then your eyes iris is closed. If it's really dark, your iris opens up wide, and if that's happening all the time between different scenes, it can get fatiguing and tiring. So we've always talked about these bias lights, Steve. You can buy them separately as a light that you can put behind the TV, or like Ambilight, it has the ISF mode where you get a nice biased D65 white light behind the TV. But you've been reviewing something which takes the Ambilight idea and adds it to every TV.
Yeah, it's basically do-it-yourself Ambilight. So, I mean, obviously, Philips have safer. They've carved a niche for themselves by having this unique feature on their TVs, and essentially what it is a series of LEDs in the back of the panel. And like you say, you can have different setups, so you can do change colours, and the LEDs will match what's on the screen, so you get this kind of multicoloured lighting effect behind the TV. Or there is an ISF mode on their TVs, which basically is a neutral D65 bias light behind the TV, which is the option I would always use. And like you say, there was a lot of evidence, but both in terms of scientifically and also, for personal experience, that says, if you create a bit of bias lighting behind the TV in your lounge, particularly in the evening when you're watching TV, it's a more comfortable viewing experience. It's less fatiguing for the eyes, and it also has an added benefit with an LCD, for example, of making the blacks look a bit better, in terms of it's an optical illusion essentially, but it does create that perception that the black's deeper.
Actually,
so there's benefits to doing it.
I actually do it here with the computer screens. So I'm looking. I've got an iMac in front of me at the minute, but I've also got a bias light behind that at the moment, which is lighting up behind the screen, so it stops you getting eye strain. And of course, you're sitting a lot closer to the computer screen as well, which can be bad for you. But if you lower the brightness and calibrate the screen properly, and then have this light behind it. It balances it all out, and it makes it really quite comfortable to sit for hours on end, like you have to do.
So there's good reasons to do this, and like you said, Philips obviously made a bit of a carved niche for themselves by having it in their TV. So if you want it, you could buy a Philips TV with Ambilight, and you'll get this feature. What a lot of enthusiasts have done in the past is that they've bought LED strip lights, stuck them to the back of the TV, and basically turn them on and off and created bias lighting that way. And that is an effective way you can do that, and it does work. I've seen plenty of examples of that in people's homes where they've done that, and it's a very effective way of doing it. What we've got here is a thing called DreamScreen, which basically takes the Ambilight idea and sells it as a do-it-yourself package effectively. And what you get in the box, and there's 3 different sizes depending on how big your TV is, but the one I've got is called the Mega, which covers up to 65-inch screen sizes. That's 45 to 65, so it covers the majority of screen sizes you get these days for most people. And when it's in the box, there's a little hub which has 3 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output, and there's a little connector for the LEDs, and the LEDs are in groups of strips of 3, and they have adhesive backing on them, and you basically stick them to the back of your TV, and you connect them to the box. You connect your devices into the box, you connect the box to the TV, plug it in, and it analyzes the signal, and then creates a multicolored lighting effect that matches the image on the screen. So very, very similar to the way that Ambilight works, and it does work quite effectively. My one complaint would be it doesn't have the D65 neutral white light option that the Ambilight do on the Philips TVs. So you've either got the disco effect or nothing. And so whilst I know there are a lot of people out there who do like that effect and would probably get it for that reason, and you can also use it for things like music and for ambient lighting, for moods and this sort of stuff. Personally, whilst I absolutely do like the neutral ISF white D65 light behind the TV, as you say, Phil, for a comfortable viewing experience, and would recommend that highly on the Ambilight TVs that Philips sell. For me personally, it's not my cup of tea to have a school disco behind my telly and loads of different coloured lights going off. Although some people do quite like it for gaming. It can make the gaming experience more immersive. And I did actually check that it doesn't add any lag to our input lag tester when I ran it through the hub. So, if you are someone who likes that kind of ambient immersive lighting effects whilst they're gaming, it's something you could look at.
I find it staggering actually that you can't have a static.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised with that. I think that's the big con, isn't it, on this review sample? And Steve, it's the one that we're going to be sending it back.
Yeah.
It needs to be there. And I've got to say, Steve, even though this doesn't have the always-on white light, bias light for D65, it is quite impressive, this technology, even though we personally don't like it. As image enthusiasts, we wouldn't personally have it. It is still quite impressive how they managed to do the tricks that the lights can do.
Yeah, no, the technology itself is impressive, and you can control it all from an app as well, which is quite cool. And the version I've got is the latest version that's part of a Kickstarter campaign. So I'll feed it back my findings to them and suggest that they add an enthusiast mode or a D65 or a bias white light mode, whatever they want to call it. It should be relatively straightforward for them to add that to the app as an option. And if it's got that, then obviously, then I would say it's a great thing to get, because you do get the benefit of a neutral bias white light. Plus, if you like those kind of lighting effects behind your TV, especially for gaming, then it's something that does work very effectively and worth getting. So I will feed that back to them, because like you say, Phil, that's the one. If for an enthusiast, I think someone who's in picture quality and not gimmicky effects, that's an unfortunate missing feature. But I think one that should be relatively straightforward to add to the app, actually, because all you have to do is set it to white and leave it at that, rather than changing as the picture changes. So I can't imagine that's difficult to do. The tricky bit is analysing the image, isn't it, and creating a coloured image. Yeah. Creating a white bias light is pretty straightforward, and like I say, people do it themselves with just strip lighting. So
you would think it'll be easy. Yeah, you think it'll be easy enough for them to add that, and if they do, then good on them. Right, excellent. Mark, Nintendo Switch news. You've bought yours now, and having bought yours, everybody else has now decided to buy it because it's, for the second month running, it's been the biggest selling console in the US.
Yep, that's right. Pretty much expected a new Nintendo console would be the biggest selling console in that particular month. The second month running, it's nice, but we are at a fairly slow time of the year. So when you scratch beneath the surface of the story, I think the numbers are more interesting. 900,000 for March, and then 280,000 in April, and this really shows they're still struggling to meet demand. There are lots of theories of kind of undersupply from Nintendo to drive hype and demand. I think they're very much wide of the mark.
Just a bit shit, really, aren't they?
Well, I mean, they're coming off the disaster of the Wii U, where they were kind of sitting on unsold stock, waiting, kind of unable to cut prices. So they were always likely to be more conservative, and we should have known that from, like, with the NES Mini, which was very, very scarce on the ground. So they're being a bit more conservative here. It still looks like they might be hoping to hit 10 million for the financial year. But with Mario Kart 8 out as well, that topped the UK charts, and in the US, 460,000 in retail and 90,000 digital in 2 days. Now that's pretty good going if you also consider the fact that it's a good sign that consumers are willing to go digital on what is essentially still a Nintendo handheld, with a certain amount of memory. But yeah, overall story is still it's doing well. The Wii U did well though in its first couple of months and then kind of fell off a cliff. However, the fact is the Switch should be somewhere around what the Wii U did in its entire first year after just a couple of months, which surely has to be good news.
Is it? Have you seen? I've not looked at this story in detail, but last month when the sales figures came out, it turned out that Zelda had a higher than 100% attach rate. There was more copies of Zelda sold than there were Switches.
Yeah, that was a little bit odd. I think that was simply the fact that everybody, they knew that was the game they wanted to play, and so therefore they were just waiting to try and find the console. And so the worst thing that they could do would be like what I did, which is end up getting the console and then trying to find a game.
Yeah.
Which is, at least if you've got a game waiting there, as soon as you've got the console, then you've got something to play on it. So yeah, that was certainly, I'd be surprised if that's ever, repeated.
So have you bought anything for it yet beyond Tetris demoing?
No, I've been playing Zelda on it, and that I think it's slightly daunting though, because I'm probably about 20 hours in, and then I spoke to a chap in a game shop who said he's 180 hours in. And I just thought
I've done about 45, and I've not really done anything.
No.
45 hours of wandering around.
That's the problem, and I'm really kind of fearful of hitting that kind of open world fatigue, where you just kind of look at a large game these days and you start to think, I'm too old for this now. There's too much to do almost. But yeah, I've just got my first horse.
I really can't.
Laziness in gaming. That's
tired. Even though I've got a horse to ride around, and it's still tiring.
Well, it's just at a given point. Sometimes games become a little bit too like real life in the sense that you've got to cook stuff in it, and like weapons break and things like that. And it's when it gets to inventory
I've got some
management.
quality recipes. I will share them after the podcast.
Oh yeah, bring back AVForums recipes.
For Zelda
recipes.
Yeah, but it's not really real life, because we were talking about that last week, weren't we, Steve? That's VR is the way to go. None of this handheld gaming.
Yes, it's far too 2D for my liking. My copy of Farpoint arrived yesterday with the new aim controller, which is basically like it's a controller but it's shaped like a machine gun. And it's a first-person shooter, so you're holding a machine gun. No, I haven't tried it yet. I won't get a chance for a bit, unfortunately, but I can't wait, because my big thing with gaming has always been I'm crap with the controller. I'm not very good with it. So if I'm holding a gun and pointing and shooting at things in a VR world, bring it on. I can't wait. That's what I call gaming. So
actually, I think you hit on a really good point there, Steve. Is the controllers? They just get far too complicated nowadays. So many buttons and toggles and switches, and it's almost like an F1 steering wheel. What the hell do all the buttons do? That was always my problem.
I can just point and shoot, get in, love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played a few games, things like Rush of Blood, and there's the VR Worlds, which has got a thing called London Heist, where we're driving along in a van being chased and stuff, and you're holding the move controllers, so they've got triggers like guns, and in the VR world you look at your hands and you're holding guns, so your brain just simulates it. You're holding guns, you forget the move controllers totally, and you're pointing and shooting, and that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In Rush of Blood, when things are jumping out at you from the dark and you've got two shotguns, one in each hand, and you're blasting away and reloading and blasting away, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, love it.
Okay, good stuff. So we're not that far away from holodeck technology after all this.
Just bring me the groinal attachment and I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Stop. Right, let's move on. Let's go back to our TV. This is a new brand that are coming to the UK. So Mitchell & Brown. I keep wanting to say Mitchell & Webb.
Yeah, I've actually written that a few times already.
It's unfortunate that that's the name that they've chosen, because I think most people think Mitchell and are going to say Webb after it.
Insert joke here, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, are we the bad guys? Does that mean we're the baddies? So Mitchell & Brown look I keep saying.
Well, the TV series was That Mitchelton Webb Look. That's why I titled it That Mitchelton Webb Look as a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a new LCD TV. It's come from a British manufacturer, so I am assuming that this is Vestal made, but made to their specification.
Let's clarify a couple of things here, because there's been a couple. We've seen one before called Linsar, which I went to go and visit about 5 years ago down in Bournemouth, and they sort of tout themselves as British manufacturers of TVs, but that's not really true. The TVs are made by Vestal in Turkey, and then to your specifications. So basically, anyone could go, anyone if you can afford it, can go and specify what you want, and they'll be very off the peg circuit boards, and connections and designs and panels, and you just select what you want, assemble it all together. They ship it open, you sell it under your branding. I know, Mark, you've seen a few of these, haven't you? Because Toshiba,
I've seen more than my fair share.
More than your fair share.
Well, it's Toshiba, and then you got Finlux as well.
Panasonic even. Not now, but 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, they did for a while, didn't they? The really low end
Hitachi,
stuff.
Bush, but they're all Vestal.
So there's been
all the Argos brands almost all Vestal.
And so if you've experienced a few of these TVs as Mark has more than one occasion, I have a few times through Tosh and through Linsar and I think Finlux as well. You kind of know what to expect. There is a sort of a template that they use, and it's all very similar. So, build quality wise, not bad actually. It's not too bad. I mean, it's got a nice classic stand and it swivels, which is a nice change these days. It's a 49-inch model I've got. They've got really, really terrible. They don't have like proper model numbers. It's like some massive, like a phone number, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
They really should think about giving these things
don't trip off the tongue, do they?
Catchier names.
It's like Chinese car manufacturers call their cars something like Neo 1767722-56.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. So I can't even remember what it is. I'm going to say it's 49-inch. It's an LED LCD TV, direct LED backlight though, which is quite good. Panel uniformity was very good. Now, out of the box accuracy could be better. Way too much blue, even in the warm picture mode. So you can imagine how much blue is in the cool picture mode. There has that slider thing, Mark, that you basically slide it all the way across.
It's not the most fine of control, is it?
All the way across the red,
shooting up,
and you get something that's bordering on half decent.
Does it just take one notch on the slider of one of them?
No, I had to move the slider all the way across to red, and that brought.
Oh, really? They've changed. Normally, it was just one. You go one left or one right on one of them, and then that was as accurate as you could ever get. The calibration took about 6 minutes.
There isn't much else to do though. No. But in all fairness, I mean, its out of the box accuracy could be better. There isn't much you can do in terms of calibration anyway to it.
What sort of panel is it?
It's an IPS.
Is it an IPS?
Yeah, judging by the back level measurements and the off-axis performance, definitely an IPS. Yeah, it's solidly made. I mean, Vestal know what they're doing. It's solidly made telly. It's 690 quid though, which is toppy.
That's
you can
quite
get
toppy for a 49-inch.
Yes, exactly. You can get one of the Philips 49 inches for a lot less than that. And I reviewed a couple recently, 6101 I think it was, and that was really good out of the box accuracy wise. And obviously you get things like Ambilight thrown in. You've got more calibration controls, and I would say value wise, it's not really delivering as much as some other TVs I can think of. You kind of think if it had been really cheap, it would have been a solid performer for the money, not too bad. But I think there's better value out there. So it's a reasonably well made. It's got apps wise, it's got Netflix, it's got Freeview Play, it's got all the catch up services. Hasn't got Amazon, unfortunately, but otherwise it's got everything else you could want. Watching 4K, it's not HDR, to point that out, but it's a 4K panel. So touching an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, it does the downscales, so it does 4K, but it's outputting 8-bit and Rec 709, so 10-bit and Rec 2020. But actually, I thought some of the stuff looked really good. When you got the added resolution, even on a 49-inch screen, depending on how far away you are from the TV, but it's quite a nice clear picture. And like I say, it's a solid performer. It doesn't do anything terrible. I think it's quite decent TV in many respects, but I just don't think it offers the value you'd expect from something that's targeting that lower end of the price scale.
Well, I've not looked for a while, but Finlux were definitely undercutting on price against the big brands, but they don't sound like they are really.
No, not with that pricing point anyway. As far as I'm concerned, I was quite surprised. I was expecting it to be cheaper than that because, like I say, that's at that price point you can start looking at some of the bigger names. Certainly Philips, for example, who are, we haven't seen that many 49-inch screens TVs of late, but the ones I have seen have been like for example the 6101 were were better performers for the money.
It makes it a difficult proposition at that price, I think, because it's a brand name that people are not going to be aware of, and if it's sitting, like you say, alongside brands like Philips or similar, that are maybe more of a household name, it kind of makes their job a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it does. It does. Because you're right. I mean, if you're a new name, regardless of how the TV's made, I mean, people aren't going to know about Vestal. It's not going to be something they're going to be aware of. They're just going to think, who are they? They're probably going to think Mitchell and Webb at the same time. Yeah, it is difficult. And the only way you can do that really effectively would be to undercut the competition in terms of pricing, which doesn't seem to be what they're doing. I think they're going for more of a quality angle.
Do you not think it will sell to, shall we say, slightly an older population? You know, for whom I'm just thinking that you see a lot of these kind of things pop up in like little catalogues that and stuff like that sell on the "this is British made."
Yeah,
and then, that's the angle they're going for, the British made angle, which again is a bit disingenuous because clearly it's not British made; it's made in Turkey. But it's a
7-year warranty as well.
Yes, it is a 7-year warranty.
Yeah,
which is always going to go down well. Mitchell and Brown are the company is an offshoot of a retailer, so obviously they're going to be doing it through their retail chains, their own retail chains up north. So I guess that's the angle they're going for, having their own brand that they can sell in their stores along with the more established stuff. I mean, it's good in some respects. It's good to see a bit of variety when it comes to TVs, because we tend to be losing brands more than gaining them these days.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and like I say, Vestal can make a TV. They know what they're doing. And it's a solidly well-made television. It does everything fine. There's no issues with it. I certainly, it's a very capable television, but I just think pricing-wise, there are better alternatives, basically.
Okay, cool. And I guess that wraps everything up. We were going to talk about MP3 being dead, but if MP3 is dead, it can wait to next week, and Ed can discuss it when he's back.
Yeah, we need Ed. We do need Ed for that.
Yeah, we need Ed to talk about MP3. At the minute, he's got a mouthful of German sausage at the Munich high-end show, so he'll be back next week. So next, it's movie news. Okay, moving on to movies, and another one which I'd like to get out and see, and I'm probably not going to be able to. That's Alien Covenant. Steve, you've seen it?
I did. Disappointing, I forgot to say. I'm not. I think I said this last week's podcast, or the last podcast we did, that I'm not a fan of Prometheus. But my big issue with Prometheus was the way the crew behaved and the characters and some of the plot lines are a bit stupid. But I did think that Prometheus introduced some quite interesting elements into the whole alien universe, the whole idea of the engineers and them bioengineering these things, and what was it all about and why were they doing it. And there were questions being raised that weren't necessarily answered in that film, which I was expecting to be answered in this film. But I think what happened is that, as conceived and originally shot, Prometheus was very much meant to be Ridley Scott said, it's not an alien film, it's set in that universe, but it's about something different. And I think he stuck in right at the very end of Prometheus, he sticks in a xenomorph in there, because he realised people were expecting it at some point, even though he thought the whole idea of the monster was kind of done and be done to death, and let's do something different. And I think the reception that Prometheus got, he's bottled it. He's basically gone, okay, they want the alien, so I better give them that. So a lot of the ideas and stuff that was introduced in Prometheus are basically jettisoned in this film and not really covered at all, or given very short shrift.
Well, that's a shame, because I was hoping we were going to get more about the engineers and...
Yeah. And you don't.
All right.
You get very little. You get a little bit, but not much. And what you get a lot more of, and to be fair, he was the best thing in Prometheus, is Michael Fassbender's android David, who is back in this film. Plus, he also plays another android called Walter, who's on the crew of the Covenant, the ship, in this film. But what you basically get with Covenant is a little bit of Prometheus, a little bit of Aliens, and a lot of Alien. A lot of it feels almost like a remake of Alien. But interestingly, not done as well. I actually watched Alien last week in anticipation. I actually watched Prometheus and Alien, in fact, before going to see Alien Covenant. And Ed's mentioned this in the previous podcast, but Alien's a brilliant film. It's absolutely brilliant. It's perfectly paced. It's beautifully made, and it's got a really well-cast crew of memorable characters. I honestly, with the exception of one character, could not tell you the names of any of the characters in Covenant.
With the Alien, for me, Alien's just a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece, because I think, is it the first 10 minutes there's no dialogue? It's just you going through and you're being introduced to the ship, where everything is going to be set for the next hour and a half, and you're slowly, and it's all slow camera, dolly moves through corridors and all the rest as the crew wakes up. So you're seeing the ship before the crew, and the pacing's just absolutely perfect. And then when the crew do wake up, they're natural, they're like a crew would be, people like that. So there's a bit of joviality, joking going on, Mickey taking, that kind of thing. You get to know the characters. It's a slow build, a bit like Jaws. You don't see the monster, and it's more about what might happen than what does happen. And it's an absolute masterpiece for that. Absolute masterpiece.
Absolutely.
And then you look at Prometheus, and like you say, it's like none of these crew seem like they get along. There's none of the joking. There's none of the, mucking around and that kind of thing that would happen with people that are stuck together for such a long time. And there's none of the camaraderie or anything like that. It just didn't make any sense. Or professionalism.
Professionalism.
Three of the world's thickest scientists sent off to die.
Yeah.
Yes, because you watch in Alien, they're a professional crew. They get about their jobs. They know what they're doing. They're not in awe of the alien world, because obviously they're used to it, but they know what they're doing. They get on with it. When things start to go wrong, they behave in a professional manner. They think, like, we've got a problem here. How do we address it? We've got to get this thing off the ship. We've got to find it. We've got to track it. We've got to capture it. We've got to get rid of it. Ripley says, I'm not letting you on the ship. I'm in command when you guys are off the ship. You're not coming on board. Ash just disobeys her orders because he's got a separate agenda. And lets it on the ship. So in fact, that's covered brilliantly in Alien. They do not break quarantine at all. Ash does it deliberately because he wants to get the alien on board the ship because he knows what's going on and they don't. Ripley behaves absolutely as you should do. I'm not letting you on board the ship. I don't know what you got on there. You could kill us all. Nobody in Covenant behaves in a professional manner or acts with awe about being on an alien world. So again, it's the same as Prometheus. You've got a bunch of idiots who really shouldn't be given those jobs if that's what they're doing, and that kind of takes you out of it, because you think, well, either you're a highly trained professional, in which case you should get on with your job, or you're going to be in awe of what you're doing because I'm on an alien world. This is amazing. No one does that either. No one behaves like real people would behave, and what you end up with unmemorable characters who you don't care about getting slaughtered by various aliens in fairly gory ways. And if you like that kind of thing, great. But I was bored by the end. I thought the interesting bits weren't being addressed. And once again, the best thing in it was Michael Fassbender. I just made me think, I'd rather just sit through Alien, watch Alien again.
Do you get
much better film?
I take it you get more Alien porn shots.
A lot more Alien, yes, a lot more. You got a lot of Alien actually,
which ruins it. Which ruins it, doesn't it?
You see too much of the Alien, so again, it loses any of its mystery. I mean, you can say, well, that's been done to death already anyway. But if you watch Alien again, you hardly see the alien, and I know that's partly because of limitations of technology at the time. But less is always more. And
even so, a man in a suit, even though if it's shot a certain way, it doesn't look like a man in a suit.
No. And Alien obviously had that brilliant aspect of Geiger's design. And of course that was revolutionary and new at the time, and now obviously we're used to seeing the xenomorphs, so it's no big deal, but the design of it, everything about Alien is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And eventually I think you just got to say, let's just leave it alone. We got it right day one, and now we're just really pissing on the
I mean the thing with Prometheus is it went the wrong way. It could have been so much better. It could have been such a good origin story that didn't necessarily have to be about the alien, you know what I mean, or aliens.
Yeah.
And they missed that. They missed the point completely. Like you say, I think he bottled it. Whereas, these build-up films could have been really quite interesting, talking about the engineers and why the engineers did what they did, and why they created these things, and missed opportunities.
Also, it's got a very open end, this film. And then Scott's talking about doing one more already. They've already written it. They're planning to shoot it next year, and maybe one after that. And I'm like, God almighty, do I want two more prequels to Alien?
I mean, talking about these franchises where they happen so often that they begin to blend together and you lose interest. Pirates of the Caribbean, I can't remember where I got to. It's so unmemorable that I can't remember which films I've seen and which ones I haven't seen, and I couldn't tell you, which order they come in either. And, it was so overly done. Like I say, they all run into each other now, and I couldn't tell you which film was which, and because again, apart from Captain Jack Sparrow and maybe Keira Knightley, the other characters were really quite forgettable. Just didn't hold interest for me. So this new film, I'm not going to go and see it. I've no interest.
No, I mean, actually, on Stranger Tides, that was the one before, I think, which is quite a while ago now. I thought that was actually quite good fun. I thought it was more of a laugh and a romp than the previous two, which had been very heavy and overly long and complicated. And
well, I mean, the last one I saw was where they had to go and get Jack from the afterlife.
Yeah, that's at World's End.
Right, and at the end of that film, I vowed no more. Had enough of this.
Yeah, it was massively budgeted. I mean, apparently those two sequels, was it Dead Man's Chest and together the largest budgeted film of all time. But I'm not made a ton of money in the cinema, so I guess it was a good investment. But it just felt like it got overly complicated and too big for too epic and too vast and too many pirates and and too much Jack Sparrow too. Jack Sparrow's great in small doses. I don't want too much of him. So I mean, we'll see how it does. I mean, the last one made $1 billion, so there was still an appetite for it. But it's been a few years now. Johnny Depp's star is not really in the ascendant anymore, is it? I think in terms of his behaviour in his personal life, it's probably impacted slightly. He hasn't had too many hit films of late, which is probably why he's doing this. I don't know if there's much appetite out there for another Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
The first film was brilliant.
Yeah, that was great fun. It was good.
So much good fun. Yeah, the pacing was right. The comedy was right. There was a decent enough. I mean, it wasn't an in-depth story, but it was a decent enough story there. There wasn't too many characters to start confusing matters and confusing plot lines and all the rest of it. And then, like you say, I mean, they just got bigger and bigger as it went on and more complicated. And then the story arcs didn't make any sense after a while, and it just became a mess for me. I wanted to like them in the same way as I wanted to enjoy the big spectacle movies like The Hobbit and that kind of thing, and they've just all been really quite disappointing. And Pirates of the Caribbean was the same. It tried to outdo itself and become more clever and all the rest of it. Whereas, you're talking about a film that's based on a theme park ride. That's where the original idea came from. You know what I mean? And they've made it up as they go along. And I just think they tried to be too clever and tried to make it too big. And in the end, it just became a mess. So I have no desire to go and see this movie because I think it's been done to death now. And I've had my fill of Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm sure it'll do good money, and I'm sure it'll do well.
But yeah, I'd be interested to see how well it does do. Actually, I've got a sneaky suspicion it might not do as well as Disney are expecting. Not that they need the money; they've got plenty pouring in from all the other franchises.
What does Mr. Botwright think?
I'm afraid I kind of tuned out after I think it was the second one. I'm not fully sure. I was of the opinion it was a good film. But it was enough for me to think that was, it didn't have to be a huge franchise. It could be a self-contained little romp. And if anything, Captain Jack Sparrow character, I just thought was something that would grate after a while, and it did. I think very much less is more. It was almost like a little kind of sketch show character that couldn't.
That's just what I was going to say.
Couldn't hold a full film on his own, and then it became all about him. Whereas if they'd just orchestrated a story where he was a character who pops up with a comedic line here and there, I think I would have kind of tuned in for more films.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say.
But I couldn't even get through the first one. It was so annoying, to be quite honest.
Right.
So I didn't even get to number 2 with this one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but these things happen, and this is why I'm so scared about these standalone Star Wars films, because there's certain characters who, like Boba Fett and like Darth Vader, who, when they're used sparingly, are really effective and really fun and all that. I mean, the end of Rogue One, absolutely brilliant, absolutely class. But you only needed to be there for that. You didn't need to see him anywhere else in that movie. And these standalone films where they're saying, well, let's make one about Vader. No, do not do that.
Exactly what we were talking about with Alien.
Yeah,
this idea
totally.
Of use the central thing that you've got that everyone's desperate to see. Use that more sparingly. Don't use more of that, because if anything, it completely destroys the illusion of it. I'll be honest. I don't even really have an interest in seeing a Han Solo film. I don't want to see it. I've got no great interest in that. I want these characters to be interesting to add to a story overall, but leave a little bit of mystique there. Leave a little bit of something that I don't know way about the character. Like
the Kessel Run. Nobody knows what that is.
Yeah.
But that's perfect, because you don't need to know what it is. You just need to know that it was done in 12 parsecs. You don't even know what a parsec is.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was just bullshitting to try and get the gig. It's like, I'm fast ship around.
Yeah,
he was a chancer.
but you don't need to know any of that detail. No. And if that's in the Han Solo film, then that.
You don't need to know how
you don't
he
need
won
to know
the
that.
Millennium
No.
Falcon from Lando Calrissian. You just
No.
that's a little bit of backstory. It's fine.
So we didn't have to wait till next week for another Star Wars. You make it to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, and we're way over time as well. So Blu-ray releases this week, Steve.
Yeah, we got quite a few out this week. We got Sing, animated musical, which I saw actually quite recently and rather enjoyed. But it's very lightweight, but quite a good voice cast, headed up by Matthew McConaughey. You got Hacksaw Ridge, which is the film about the conscientious objector, World War II, directed by Mel Gibson. Actually, pretty good film. Good performances, brutal battle scenes. Really visceral.
Like that Panasonic TV you're reviewing now, this seems to have been coming out forever.
Well, it's been out. We reviewed the US release. There was a cinema release, and then very soon after the cinema release in this country, we got the US Ultra HD Blu-ray release. It's only just come out on disc in this country. So that's Sing and Hacksaw Ridge are both coming out on Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray this week. Hacksaw Ridge, amazing Dolby Atmos soundtrack, though. If you like Dolby Atmos soundtracks, this one's fantastic. We've also got Live by Night, which was directed by Ben Affleck and stars him too. It's a gangster movie. Did very poorly at the box office. Again, that's coming out on Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray this week. Have not seen it myself. Mulholland Drive is getting a reissue this week on Blu-ray from a new 4K restoration. That it was voted the best film of the 21st century quite recently by a bunch of critics. I do love it. I think it's a brilliant film. If you like David Lynch, obviously it's tying with the fact that Twin Peaks starts again this week as well on Tuesday. So if you're into Twin Peaks, that's back. And we've also got Lion, which was a film about an Indian boy who basically walked onto a train by accident, wound up on the other side of the country, then was picked up and was a homeless kid adopted by an Australian woman, and then goes back to India to find his family. It actually sounds really good. Has great performances from Nicole Kidman and Dev Patel, and actually something I'm quite interested in seeing at some point. Probably won't get it on disc, probably watch it on TV at some point, but has had really good reviews and does sound very interesting and is a true story. So those are all out on Blu-ray. Ultra HD Blu-ray wise, as I mentioned, Sing, Hacksaw Ridge and Live by Night are all new this week in the UK. In the US, news-wise, Sony are prepping Leon and the Fifth Element for release in July. Isn't a surprise given that they'd already done 4K restorations of those. And also apparently are working on Bush and River Kwai, because it's the 60th anniversary of that film this year. And also Close Encounters of getting its 40th anniversary this year, so same year as Star Wars came out, in fact. So that looking like they're prepping that one for a Blu-ray, Ultra HD Blu-ray release later in the year. And that's it for now.
Shows you how much I know about film, that I thought Live by Night was Live by Night and Lion was about a lion.
I thought it was about battery technology.
Though I did like Mulholland Drive.
Why is that?
I just did at the time. It was, yeah, I like David Lynch.
You're gonna
I've
watch?
still not seen it.
Yeah, I think so. I think I can get into that. Of course, I had the advantage in those days of being in altered states a lot more. So I probably enjoyed it. Probably got more out of it then.
Probably made perfect sense to you. I bet you watched Twin Peaks and just thought, yeah, I get this.
Loved
But
it.
it's everybody
Yeah,
else's.
It was a highlight of the week.
The only person to understand Lost Highway.
No, not even me.
Right. Moving on swiftly, there's two trailers popped up this week for two very similar types of TV series. Star Trek Discovery. It's coming in the autumn. It was supposed to be out in May, wasn't it, Steve, originally? But
It's supposed to be out
it's
in
been
January
delayed.
originally.
Yeah.
Was it really? Right.
Yeah.
I always thought it was May, but anyway, it's moved to the autumn. Notice to say autumn, they don't give you any dates. It's going to be Netflix in this country. So it's the first full series trailer that we've had, and seemingly this is set 10 years before the original Enterprise crew of Kirk and Spock and all the rest of it. And the problem I had straight away with seeing what's in the trailer is the technology is too advanced for it to exist in the same universe as the original crew.
Well, is it the original crew or is it the revamped movie crew that they're talking about? No, I'm not really sure.
Well, it just says 10 years before Kirk, Spock and
But
McCoy.
it could be. Yeah.
Well, it could be, but it doesn't feel of the period, if you know what I mean. At least, with the rebooted Star Trek stuff, there was elements of the original series in there, even though the technology was a little bit more advanced. There was still the same sound effects and that kind of thing for certain things. I don't know. I watched it and it didn't do anything for me. In Star Trek, usually I'm interested. I'm there normally, and I will be there to watch the series. But the trailer did nothing for me in terms
It
of.
all looked very earnest and boring, didn't it? Well, it did to me.
Too
anyway.
serious, and
Far too
With it
serious.
being Sorry, with it being Netflix, is this the kind of thing that's going to come out on a weekly basis, or is it all going to get dumped?
It's going to be like Better Call Saul. Every week they'll add an episode.
Because I just wondered if that's perhaps why they were going for like the kind of overarching narrative. It seemed like it was very kind of earnest and a bit kind of po-faced, because in terms of like binge watching TV, the kind of thing that gets dumped all in one tends to be all about some kind of overarching narrative that drags you through from each episode, rather than if it's just a weekly thing, then I don't think they have to do that. Just have kind of interesting stories like the original Star Trek.
Looking at the trailer, it looked more than just an episode trailer. It looked like it was a series arc that obviously you're going to follow. It's all about the second officer on this one, from what I can gather anyway. It's all about this second officer. Strong female lead. Where have we heard that one from before?
With a female captain as well. It's like if you're a
captain.
bloke in the future, you've got no chance of getting a job if you.
If you're a white bloke in the future, you're wearing the red jacket. You're wearing the red uniform.
The cannon fodder.
Yeah.
Like
they don't even have the red jackets though.
The Klingons look different, don't they? So what time
weird,
is it? 70?
Wrong, really wrong.
Look, they've been smashing their face with a frying pan, didn't they?
Yeah. You see, this is why I've got problems. I've got no problems with it if they want to reboot it, but you got to tell us that that's the case. You got to tell us where this universe is. You got to tell us where it's set. And with the captions that run in the trailer, I was confused, and I didn't understand. Like you said, I hadn't even considered the rebooted Star Trek in that, because when it says Kirk Spock, I'll go back to the 60s. You know what I mean?
You're thinking Shatner.
I'm thinking Shatner. You know what I mean? And it's just the way that my brain thinks, but I bet I'm not the only one that thinks that, and like you say, it's a bit po-faced, a bit serious, a bit. And I know Star Trek's more about discussing problems and finding solutions and races.
It was very black as well, wasn't it? It was just all dark.
I thought it looked.
I know space is, I'm aware of it.
I thought it looked effects-wise. I remember seeing the initial teaser trailer that they put out, and the effects in that were just shocking.
Yes,
and that's one of the reasons why it's been
delayed, isn't it?
Delayed, because they got.
It was Etch-a-Sketch for the ship, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really bad. I thought, was that meant to be a final effect? They at least they look like they've upped the effects budget considerably now, because it looks more, cinema quality.
Yeah, but the cinematic look and the cinematography again doesn't match in with what's come before. So again, they need to be telling us what universe this is set in and where we are. I think to get a grip of it, because stylistically, it looks completely different to what's gone before. So we need a bit more information about where we are and where things are going with it. I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence on this one. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad.
It looks good, but it doesn't look like Star Trek. I think that's
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. It's had a troubled history too, because I think Brian Fuller was going to be running it, and he got the boot. Now he's doing American Gods, which I've got to say is brilliant. I'm fully with Ed on that one. That's a really good show. But he had a history with Star Trek before that, so it's definitely not had an easy transition back to the small screen. The films aren't doing that well at cinema in terms of box office and appeal. You're kind of wondering, is it going to have a big audience? Is there much of a demand for another Star Trek series?
Again, this is coming back to our conversation on Aliens and Pirates of the Caribbean. Too much of a good thing, sometimes it works against you. I mean, I believe that's why Star Trek was so popular, was the fact that it got cancelled, because it gave it had the time to through syndication and all the rest of it, and over 10 or 12 years, however long it was, I think it was 14 years, wasn't it? It had in syndication. It had time to build up a fan base and get a movement behind it and all the rest of it. And then when you think of the original cast films, again, they didn't outstay their welcome. There was a couple of stinkers in there, but generally they were good movies. But there was only 6 of them. Is that right?
6, yeah. 6.
Of the original cast. That was enough. That was enough of that story, of that crew. And the fact was that you had the time between the original series and the first film to genuinely like the crew as well, which is why they get away with the things they get away with in Wrath of Khan. Whereas, with this reboot and then this TV series, it seems like they're rushing everything, and there's no appeal there. I like the rebooted films for what they are, which is fun, but they're not any more than that. They're fun, and that's about it. Good effects and all the rest of it. And where it didn't work was when they tried to do the Wrath of Khan in the second film, Into Darkness, and it fell flat because you don't have that bond with the crew. You don't have that bond with those actors yet that you did for the original series. I mean, even the Next Generation stuff, it worked, really quite well, because again it was limited and it was a limited run of films, and I think everybody accepted the fact that there was only going to be, was there 4 of them?
There were 4 of them, yeah.
Everybody
Which only one's any good.
Yeah, but First Contact is the best one, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. But the thing was, again, they didn't overdo it. So I think that's the problem we've got with Star Trek. I think maybe it needs 20 years away. Maybe not.
Yeah.
20.
I think it,
good, right.
I think if they're doing a series, they just need to make it self-contained episodes and make them interesting, rather than pushing for something, this huge narrative about all or nothing or something like that. And it all seems kind of too big and too grandiose. Whereas, particularly with The Next Generation, which was more kind of what I grew up on, it was just interesting stories each week. And you can have a kind of a central narrative that kind of keeps on coming back, and you can have a kind of antagonist and that kind of thing. But as long as you make the weekly episodes decent, and as long as this is called Star Trek Discovery, I didn't see anything in that trailer that intimated any kind of interesting kind of scientific discovery. It just looked like something's going to try and destroy us all, and we've got to destroy it.
You just have to look at the original series and then again Next Generation, so on. Going boldly where no man or no mankind hasn't been before and all the rest of it. But the only one where that was actually true was Voyager, because every week they weren't really explorers in the sense of what we think explorers are. Certainly the new films are not like that whatsoever. They're not about that. But then I don't think they used that tagline, did they, with the new films? So
I mean, I think Mark's hit Botwright hit a nail on the head with his comments about the way TV is made now and the way it is consumed, particularly, is very different. Back in the days of Star Trek, the original series, and also Next Generation, they were made for syndication. And so you had self-contained stories every week, because that's the syndication model. You don't want a story arcs. People aren't going to necessarily see them in order. They're going to see one this week and one a couple of weeks later and another one then and this one then. So you want self-contained stories. Twin Peaks changed everything, because Twin Peaks was a story arc, and a complicated one at that you had to follow over a period of time. And after Twin Peaks, Star Trek writers started pushing, people like Ronald D. Moore really started pushing for story arcs that covered an entire season. They got resistance from that. They never got around to do a whole season of story arcs, but they did like maybe a 6-episode story arc, and that was in Deep Space Nine where they started doing that. And a lot of those episodes now, because you can watch them on things like Netflix, where now everything's changed and you can consume things any way you want. If you want to binge a whole lot over a weekend, you can, and you can follow an entire story arc in one sitting if you so wish. That's changed that. I mean, so Twin Peaks started it. Netflix has really completely changed it now, and I think we will find them doing story arcs, because that's just the way TV is now, scripted and done. I don't think people want to make single hour-long episodes anymore. It's just not the way TV is structured. I mean, you'll probably still get standalone episodes, but there's going to be an overriding story arc, because that's just the way it is.
The one thing you hear from creatives nowadays when it comes to TV is that it's one long movie is how they describe TV series now. So you've moved away from, like you say, the syndication model to that. Right, quickly, the other one that came out this week, another trailer, and it looked funny, but at the same time it looked goddamn awful, and that's the Orville. which is really
thinking of a duck in a nappy right now.
Yeah. Exactly. And for Brits like us, that's hilarious. It really is. You couldn't come up with a better name than the Orville. And this is Seth MacFarlane's take on the Star Trek universe in the spoof. And the trailer's about 2.5 minutes long, and I think all the best jokes are in there.
If they're all the best jokes, I'm definitely not watching.
Yeah,
it didn't even bring a smile to my face. I thought,
well, you see that.
Why is this?
Well, the first thing that popped in my head was Galaxy Quest, and Galaxy Quest is just so superior. I mean, it's one of my favourite sci-fi films, because it is the perfect spoof, but at the same time it has genuinely likeable characters, lovable characters. Alan Rickman is just superb in it. This is why I've got a problem with this one. I can see where the genesis of the ideas come from. You can have fun with it. There's lots of things there, like aliens. He makes the pee joke, and yes, okay, but there's only so far you can take humour like that, and Seth MacFarlane's humour works in an animated form, apart from the original Ted, in certain aspects of the original Ted movie, everything else he has done on film has not been very good at all. I mean, A Million Ways to Die in the West is dire. It has a couple of laugh out loud moments, but everything else is pretty. So I have real fears for this. I don't think he works well live action. I think he's animation wise, yes, it works because you can get away with more in animation, but live action stuff, don't know what any of you other guys think, but I don't think it's going to work.
Well, he's a massive Star Trek fan, so hopefully that means he can find things to riff off of pretty easily. Jon Favreau is involved as well, so he's got a quality group behind the scenes. But yeah, it's whether you like Seth MacFarlane as a on camera, like you say, Phil. Even in Ted, he's playing an animated teddy bear. So again, it's not him physically.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at A Million Ways to Die in the West and anything else where he's in front of the camera, he's not a star man. He's not a good actor. He's not a good comedic actor.
So jury's out on that one. I'll check it out there when it does air, because I'm sure it'll be funny in places. And
is that a streaming service it's going to?
I think again
it's Fox. It's Fox now and Sky.
Which is a shame. Which well, depends which way you look at it, because I got BT TV and Fox are now not available on BT TV. So
watch it on Now TV if you get one of those.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay for it, Steve.
And that's assuming that
not
that
system
pick it up, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you never know. I mean,
TV now, isn't it?
it might pop up on one of the one of the players somewhere on Amazon or something like that. Might do that. Anyway, those are two trailers that were out this week. Similar subject matter, two different ways, and not really sure on both of those, to be honest. I mean, Mark, are you a Seth MacFarlane fan? Botwright?
In animated form, yes, very much so. In live action form, no. I'm afraid I think perhaps he has a feeling that he knows how to act his own lines, but in a strange way, I think his lines work best in animated form.
Yeah.
I watched that trailer and I was gobsmacked at just how dire it looked. There wasn't even the slightest hint of a smile across my face, and I just thought it looked horrendously stilted and unfunny. And all I can hope is that maybe him being a big Star Trek fan, he's put in more nuanced jokes in there, but the people who've cut the trailer have just gone for the obvious gags, and maybe there's actually stuff that's kind of more revolves around Star Trek material, because otherwise it just looked very much kind of sub Galaxy Quest, and that's all I could really think.
So anyway, that's two trailers, like we say, two new TV series coming up later in the year. We'll see what they're like, but on initial viewings, we're not sure, and we're definitely not sure about Seth MacFarlane's. Which brings us on to, just to wrap up quickly, we are talking about TV stuff recently. There's been quite a lot of new documentaries popping up on streaming services and so on, and as well as the BBC recently. I have found myself, Steve, BBC 4 and BBC 2, there's been some absolutely brilliant stuff. 60th anniversary of Sky at Night, did some excellent stuff. I know you're into your astronomy and moon landings and all that kind of thing. Did you catch that?
I did not, actually. Bits of it I have. This week I have been absolutely glued to BBC 4. They were showing OJ Made in America. 7.5 hour 5-part series. Absolutely brilliant.
Calm down. I'm only on episode 2, so please do not discuss anymore.
I think you know how it ends.
Yeah, I know how it ends, but it is it's really well put together. And at the minute, I'm still getting the different strands of these different characters being introduced. So it
is an amazing study. Obviously, OJ himself, but it's a study of America. It's a study of celebrity, of race in America, of the police force and the criminal system. It's just that you couldn't write this stuff, could you?
Yeah.
It just fits together. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
The way it's edited and the way it's put together, and like I say, I'm only on episode 2 at the minute, halfway through episode 2. I'm watching it on a lunchtime, so I'm only getting snippets here and there, but the way, like you say, the way it's put together, the way it's explaining different things, it's really, really well done. It's really well put together.
I didn't know it was on BBC 4. I'd watched it on BT Sport, I think it was.
Yeah, they're running it all this week on BBC 4.
Every night.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And it's obviously it's on iPlayer as well. This is the way I'm watching it. I'm piecemealing it as I go along. So that's really good, Steve. There's a couple of science things that I've watched recently, which are really, really good. If you get the chance to see them, they are on iPlayer at the minute. One is The Day the Dinosaurs Died, which is a
I watched that. Yeah.
Which is a look at 66 million years ago, the asteroid hitting the Earth and all the rest, and it's looking for the evidence to back up the theory of that's why the dinosaurs died out, and really, really interesting. If you're into that kind of thing, that's really, really good. And Messages from Space, the alien thing, which for a Horizon documentary, I thought it was really quite interesting that it didn't stick to the complete scientific.
No, it didn't. It was very weird, wasn't it?
Which is really weird for a Horizon program, because normally they are so strictly down the whole, this is science fact side of things, that a subject like that is still quite taboo, really, talking about alien life and alien civilizations and advanced civilizations and that kind of thing. It's still a bit of a taboo subject. So I found the way that documentary was put together, especially the ending, was really, really quite clever. Really, really interesting.
It was good. If you're a fan of movies and also interested in World War II, I can highly recommend 5 Came Back, which is a 3-part documentary on Netflix about 5 directors, famous big Hollywood directors: John Ford, John Huston, George Stevens, Frank Capra, and William Wyler, all of whom were at the top of their game before World War II started, go to World War II to document it, to make propaganda films for the US military. And it covers their career beforehand, it covers their experiences during World War II, and it covers how it affected them when they came back. George Stevens, for example, who only made comedies before World War II, never made another comedy again after World War II, and his films were much more serious because they were so affected by. He was one guy that actually filmed the death camps, and it affected him so badly he couldn't even make a comedy again. So it's absolutely brilliant. It's full of really interesting stuff about World War II, about propaganda, about some of the stuff where they filmed, like John Huston covered a battle. He got there too late to film the battle, so they restaged the battle after the battle had finished in order to film it for the propaganda movies. It's absolutely brilliant. So it's got involvement from really big directors like Lawrence Kasdan, Coppola, Spielberg, Paul Greengrass, and Guillermo del Toro. So they each take one of the directors and talk about them and their history and their careers and everything. It's a fantastic documentary, and highly recommend it.
I watched a good one last night. It's I'm not sure if it's UK Netflix or it's only on US Netflix, but it was called Blackout, which was about the blackout in New York City in 1977. It was in the middle of the biggest ever heat wave they've had. It was against the backdrop of 12% unemployment. The city was nearly bankrupt and under police, and the lights went out following.
Was that the Summer of Sam as well?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's called Blackout. It's made by PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service in America, and there's a lot of on the ground footage. I don't know how there were so many cameras down there in 1977, but it goes around the 5 islands, and basically they were all blacked out, and different areas reacted to it in different ways. Predictably there was a lot of looting, but then there was in other areas a lot of people pulling together a kind of end of war atmosphere almost, and it was utterly fascinating the way it all came together, and then there was a bit of a political backdrop to it, and it just filled in the gaps really well, and it was an absolutely compelling hour or so of documentary.
American Experience of Blackout is available on UK Netflix. I've just had a quick look there, Mark.
Good. Yeah,
so that is available. 52 minutes long. I guess that's just about it. There's only one other one I want you to mention, and that's if you're into old school hip hop and want to know how that movement started and where the music came from and all that kind of thing, there is an absolutely brilliant series on Netflix called Hip Hop Evolution.
I watched that. Fab, innit?
I think it's about 4 or 5 episodes long.
Yeah, 4.
And it goes all the way back to the original days of where this movement came from, the ghettos of the Bronx, and how it developed and how the seed was set and all the rest of it. And it's really, really good, and it's really well put together, and probably the best I've seen. I mean, I've seen loads of documentaries about Africa Bambaataa and all the rest of it, and how those movements all set up and the sound systems and stuff. This is probably the best produced because it comes from somebody who loves the subject matter and who knows the history and actually goes back and tells the story properly. That's well worth looking at. And I was going to
say, there's a good documentary on Amazon at the moment called Supersonic about Oasis, from when they first arrived on the scene in 93 to when they hit their peak in 96. So it's only a 3-year period, but it's really funny and an interesting sort of capturing that period of time when they were the biggest band in the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
And also, there's a new one coming out on Amazon called Long Strange Trip about the Grateful Dead that looks like it might be quite good fun.
Ooh.
And last two that I'm going to mention because they are on subject. One is Star Wars related, which is I Am Your Father, which is on Netflix.
Yeah, that was great.
And it follows David Prowse, what he thinks of the whole thing, and did he leak to the press at the time, and
yeah,
you know, the falling out with Lucasfilm and all the rest of it. And they want to try and recreate the scene at the end with Sebastian Shaw's scene where the mask's revealed, and it should be David Prowse. So that's well worth watching. And Star Trek, the other one on there is called Chaos on the Bridge, and this follows, it's William Shatner that presents it, and it's all about Gene Roddenberry, the real Gene Roddenberry, and it is so insightful, really, really good. Man. He wasn't that nice a man, no.
No.
But it's really, really well put together, that documentary. So there you go.
Oh, also there's one you mentioned, Mark, Elm Street 1976.
Yes,
Mark?
sorry. Yeah.
Which you said was on Now TV, but it is not on Now. You have to pay to watch it. It's on the subscription movie service, unfortunately.
Oh, boo!
But when I can watch it for nothing, I will definitely watch that because that looks like very interesting.
It's a great recommendation.
I'm not paying for it, but
yeah, well, it'll pop up eventually on Netflix or whatever.
It is on Now TV. You just have to pay for it. Never said you didn't have to pay for it.
But you see, this is a good thing about the likes of Netflix and Amazon and so on as well, is that they're actually picking up on stuff that's doing really well online. So a lot of series that are maybe YouTube only for a long time, they're actually now starting to buy into those and have the series produced for Netflix and that kind of thing, which is great if you're into niche subjects and documentaries like I Am Your Father and Chaos on the Bridge and that kind of thing. I mean, these are things that are being made because of Netflix money, because Netflix is investing. So there's a lot of negatives said about Netflix and Amazon, that kind of thing, but actually the amount of money that they're pumping into productions and making sure that things get made is great, because for the last year I've been watching probably some of the best documentaries I've ever seen on subject matters that I really like, and they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the streaming services.
No, there are some fantastic ones just popping up on YouTube that is still a great kind of repository for niche material. There's one, if you're into in any way kind of like blues music, there's one called The Last of the Hill Country Bluesmen, which is about Mississippi Hill Country blues, and there's loads of stuff like that, which is really kind of picking up on as these kind of older blues players were kind of getting on in years. Several filmmakers went up there and kind of chronicled their latter years, and so it's great kind of archive footage, and there are loads of kind of really good older documentaries just popping up on YouTube all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's one on Netflix that I watched the other day. It's purely by accident I watched it, and it answered so many questions about a certain breakbeat that gets used over and over and over again since the 80s, and I've always wanted to know where this came from, and it's called Sample This. It's about an hour long, and it's about the Incredible Bongo Band, who I'd never heard of before.
I've never heard of them. But
seemingly it was, and we're coming back to Hip Hop Evolution, Kool Herc, who was the original hip hop DJ, he sampled it originally. It was Apache, and it's used by everybody, but it was actually the Incredible Bongo Band that did that. And it's this documentary, it's about an hour long, but it's just about that band who weren't actually a band. So it's really quite fascinating when you actually get into it, because it was just a whole load of session musicians at a recording studio that were put together by this producer, created this record. It was a bit of a hit, but then the hip hop guys started picking it up because of all the different break beats and so on, and they are the really famous break beats. I mean, as soon as you hear it, you know exactly what it is. So yeah, that's another one. Right, we're way over time now, so we need to wrap things up very swiftly. So TV series, if you're interested in that, if you want to give us recommendations of what we should be looking for, Mark's going to update as well. It's on the homepage at the minute, the AVForums TV show watch list. We will put your suggestions in there, so just make suggestions in the thread. If you highlight the name of the show in black, in bold, we will add it in, and if you could give us a quick synopsis of what it's about, we'll add that into our list. We'll update what we're watching on there, and I guess we could put all the documentaries in that we've mentioned.
Yeah, documentary section coming up.
Documentary session getting added to that as well. So that's it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Any man who falls behind gets left behind.
Mark Hodgkinson.
Why is the rum gone?
And Mark Botwright.
Nice hat.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and video, and of course leave us those 5-star ratings on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again, and Ed, next week.